a rusted 2004 Ford F-150, and a simple grey hoodie were all Officer Brett Kowalski saw on Route 95. He saw an easy target, a statistic he could bully into a confession. He didn't see the Presidential Medal of Freedom at home, or the vibrating phone in the suspect's pocket connected directly to the Pentagon. This wasn't just a traffic stop. It was the moment absolute arrogance met absolute power. When the dust settled, Kowalski wasn't just fired, he was destroyed. He never knew the man in handcuffs was the only person keeping a four-star general's dying daughter alive today. It was 11:43 p.m. on a Tuesday, the kind of humid, sticky night in late August, where the air feels heavy enough to wear. The stretch of I-95 heading out of D.C. toward Baltimore was unusually quiet, save for the rhythmic thump-thump of tires on worn asphalt. Dr. Isaiah Sterling adjusted the rear-view mirror of his truck. The 2004 Ford F-150 was a rust bucket by anyone's standards. The paint, once a proud navy blue, was peeling like a sunburn, and the engine rattled with a persistent cough that no mechanic seemed able to cure. But Isaiah loved it. It had belonged to his father, a master carpenter who had built half the porches in their neighborhood. To anyone else, it looked like a junker driven by someone down on their luck. To Isaiah, it was a sanctuary. It was the only place where he wasn't Dr. Sterling, chief of experimental neurosurgery. It was the only place where he wasn't the man responsible for the Defense Department's most classified cognitive recovery program. In this truck, he was just Isaiah. He rubbed his temples. He had been in surgery for 14 hours straight. The patient, a high-value asset injured in a botched extraction in Syria, was stable, but the procedure had been a nightmare of microscopic precision. Isaiah was still wearing his scrubs under a grey hoodie he'd grabbed from his locker. He looked exhausted. He looked rough. He didn't see the cruiser at first. He only saw the sudden, blinding wash of red and blue light flooding his cab. Isaiah sighed, the sound heavy in his chest. He checked his speedometer. He was doing 54 in a 55. He was in the right lane. His hands were at 10 and 2. "Okay," he whispered to himself, his voice raspy. "Just a check. Stay calm. You're tired. Don't make it a thing." He signaled, pulling the heavy truck onto the shoulder. The gravel crunched loudly as he came to a stop. He killed the engine, rolled down the window, and placed his hands clearly on the top of the steering wheel. He knew the drill. He grew up in Chicago. He knew exactly how a black man in a hoodie needed to sit when the lights came on. He watched the side mirror. 2 shadows approached. One was hanging back near the cruiser, the cover officer. The other was striding forward with a hand resting casually, yet threateningly, on his holster. The flashlight beam hit Isaiah's face like a physical blow. He squinted, turning his head slightly away. "License and registration," the voice barked. It wasn't a question. It was a command laced with boredom and irritation. Isaiah blinked against the glare. "Good evening, officer. Is there a problem?" "License and registration." The officer leaned in. This was Officer Brett Kowalski. He was a 15-year veteran of the force, a man with a thick neck, a buzz cut that was starting to grey, and a personnel file filled with excessive force complaints that had been magically swept under the rug by the union. To Kowalski, the night was slow, he was hungry, and this beat-up truck looked like it might yield a drug bust, or at least an outstanding warrant. "It's in the glove box," Isaiah said, moving slowly. "I'm reaching for it now." "Do it slowly," Kowalski snapped, his hand tightening on his weapon. Isaiah opened the compartment, the hinge squeaking loudly. He pulled out the worn leather wallet and the registration papers. He handed them out the window. Kowalski snatched them. He shone the light onto the license, then back at Isaiah's face, then back at the license. He let out a sharp, mocking laugh. "Dr. Isaiah Sterling?" Kowalski read the name with exaggerated skepticism. He looked at the rust on the door panel. "You a doctor, huh? What kind of doctor drives a piece of trash like this? You fix lawnmowers? Isaiah felt the first prickle of heat on the back of his neck. I'm a neurosurgeon, officer. This was my father's truck. A neurosurgeon. Kowalski turned to his partner, a younger, slimmer rookie named Amy Riley, who was standing by the rear tire. You hear that, Riley? We got a brain surgeon here, probably headed to a very important medical emergency in his hoodie. Riley didn't laugh. She looked uneasy. She shifted her weight, glancing at the sticker on the back windshield, a faded Department of Defense parking permit that was barely visible under the dirt. Kowalski, maybe just run the license, she murmured. I'm running it, Kowalski said, turning back to Isaiah. So, doctor, you know why I pulled you over? No, sir. I wasn't speeding. You got a broken taillight, left side smoked out. Isaiah frowned. I just replaced that bulb yesterday. It's brand new. Kowalski leaned in closer, his breath smelling of stale coffee and tobacco. Are you calling me a liar, boy? The word hung in the air. Boy. It was a word that stripped away the 14 hours of surgery, the PhD, the MD, the Presidential Medal of Freedom sitting in a drawer at home. I'm saying the bulb is new, Isaiah said, his voice tightening. If it's out, it must be a fuse. I can fix it right here. Step out of the car, Kowalski ordered, stepping back and unclipping the safety strap on his holster. Officer, I'm extremely tired. I've been working for 30 hours. If you write me a ticket, I'll be on my way. I said step out of the vehicle, now! Kowalski screamed, the sudden escalation designed to shock. He grabbed the door handle and wrenched it open. Isaiah unbuckled his seatbelt. He knew that resisting, even verbally, was dangerous territory. He stepped out, his 6'2" frame rising out of the truck. He was taller than Kowalski, which the officer clearly didn't like. Turn around, hands on the hood, spread your legs. Isaiah complied. The cold metal of the hood seeped through his palms. Officer, I have identification in my back pocket that verifies my employment with the DOD. If you look at it, I don't care who you work for, Kowalski said, patting Isaiah down aggressively, his hands slapping hard against Isaiah's ribs and thighs. I find a lot of guys in hoodies claiming they work for the government. Usually the only government they know is the Department of Corrections. Kowalski's hand paused over Isaiah's front pocket. He felt the square outline of a phone. What's this? My phone, Isaiah said. And I have the right to... Kowalski yanked the phone out. We'll see about that. That phone is encrypted government property, Isaiah said, his voice dropping an octave. The fatigue was vanishing, replaced by a cold, sharp focus. Officer, I am going to ask you once, very politely, to check my credentials before you do something that will end your career. Kowalski froze. The audacity of the threat stunned him. Then his face turned a mottled red. He threw the phone onto the hood of the truck, hard. It skidded across the metal. Turn around, Kowalski hissed. You're under arrest. For what? Disorderly conduct, resisting a lawful order, and... Kowalski smirked. I smell marijuana. I don't smoke, Isaiah said calmly, and neither does this truck. I smell it, Kowalski lied, his eyes glinting with malice. Riley, get the cuffs. We're tossing the vehicle. Officer Amy Riley hesitated. She had been on the force for 6 months. She joined because she wanted to help people, a cliché that was rapidly being beaten out of her by the reality of the night shift with Kowalski. She looked at the tall man standing by the truck. He didn't look like the junkies or the bangers they usually picked up. He stood with a stillness that was unnerving. He wasn't shaking. He wasn't pleading. He was calculating. Kowalski, Riley whispered as she approached. He's really calm. Maybe we should check the ID he mentioned. Shut up, Riley, Kowalski snapped. He grabbed Isaiah's wrist and twisted it behind his back, harder than necessary. The handcuffs ratcheted shut with a metallic click, click, click. You rookies are too soft. This guy is a player. Look at him. He's too calm. That means he's done time. Isaiah didn't flinch as the metal bit into his wrists. Officer Riley, Isaiah said, addressing the rookie directly. He didn't turn his head. My name is Dr. Isaiah Sterling. In the inside pocket of my hoodie, there is a wallet. Behind my driver's license, there is a black card with a gold chip and a holographic seal. Please look at it. Don't touch him, Riley, Kowalski barked. He's probably got a needle in there. Kowalski shoved Isaiah towards the back of the truck, forcing him to lean awkwardly against the tailgate. Stay there, and keep your mouth shut. Kowalski pulled on a pair of blue nitrile gloves. He looked like a kid in a candy store, ready to tear the truck apart. He dove into the driver's side. Isaiah closed his eyes and took a deep breath. 9 minutes. He calculated the time. If he didn't check in with the automated security protocol at the lab by midnight, a silent alarm would trigger. But that was 20 minutes away. He needed to accelerate this. "Hey!" Kowalski shouted from inside the cab. "Bingo!" He emerged holding a small silver canister. It looked like a pill bottle, but made of brushed aluminum. "Prescription meds?" Kowalski shook it. "No label. That's a felony, Doc." "That is ibuprofen," Isaiah said dryly. "I carry it because I stand over an operating table for 12 hours a day." "We'll let the lab boys figure that out," Kowalski said, pocketing it. He went back in. Papers flew out the window. He ripped the lining of the glove box. He was tearing the interior apart, looking for the stash he was convinced had to be there. Then he stopped. He reached behind the passenger seat and pulled out a heavy, matte black briefcase. It was sleek, modern, and completely out of place in the battered Ford F-150. It had no zippers, only a biometric thumb scanner and a keypad. Kowalski whistled. "Well, well. What do we have here? This costs more than the truck." Isaiah's heart hammered against his ribs. That briefcase contained the prototype for the Project Chimera neural interface. It was classified top secret SCI, sensitive compartmented information. It was worth billions, and more importantly, it was the only thing keeping General Harrison Clay's daughter alive. She was scheduled for the implant at 0600 hours tomorrow. "Officer," Isaiah said, his voice cutting through the humid air like a razor, "do not attempt to open that case. That is classified property of the United States Department of Defense. If you tamper with it, you are committing a federal crime under the Espionage Act." Kowalski placed the case on the hood of the cruiser. He looked at Isaiah with a grin that was all teeth. "Espionage Act? You're watching too many movies, buddy. What's in here? Coke? Cash? Maybe some stolen goods?" "There is nothing illegal in there, but there is a tracking beacon inside that case. If you force it open, or if you enter the wrong code 3 times, it will send a distress signal to the Pentagon, and they will not send a traffic cop to investigate." Kowalski laughed. It was a loud, ugly sound. "Listen to this guy. The Pentagon. You hear that, Riley? We got James Bond here." Riley was looking at the case. She saw the markings on the corner. Small, faint letters. U.S. Govee T-Prop. Do not duplicate. "Kowalski," Riley's voice wavered. It has government markings on it." "Stickers," Kowalski dismissed. "You can buy 'em online. Dealers use 'em to scare off cops." Kowalski pulled out his baton. "Don't," Isaiah said. It wasn't a request. It was a final warning. Kowalski raised the baton. "I'm conducting a probable cause search. I suspect narcotics are inside." "There is no probable cause," Isaiah shouted, straining against the cuffs. "You found ibuprofen and a broken tail light." Kowalski didn't listen. He swung the baton down hard on the locking mechanism of the case. Crack! The plastic of the scanner shattered, but the case didn't open. Instead, a piercing, high-pitched electronic shriek erupted from the briefcase. It was deafening, like a banshee screaming in the night. Red LEDs on the handle began to strobe violently. "Turn it off!" Kowalski yelled, covering his ears. He hit it again. Wham! "You idiot!" Isaiah roared. "You just triggered the tamper protocol. Give me the code." Kowalski marched over to Isaiah, grabbing him by the hoodie. "Give me the code or I will light you up right now." "I can't," Isaiah yelled over the siren noise coming from the case. "It's biometric! You smashed the scanner! You broke the circuit!" Suddenly the noise stopped. The lights on the case went solid red. Silence rushed back onto the highway, heavier than before. "See?" Kowalski panted, sweating now. "It stopped. Just a cheap alarm." Isaiah looked at Kowalski with a mixture of pity and terrifying calm. He looked at his watch. 11:51 p.m. "It didn't stop, officer," Isaiah said softly. "It locked down, and it just sent a code black signal. That means asset compromised." Isaiah looked up at the sky. "You have about 4 minutes before your world ends." "Why?" Kowalski stared at him, his baton hanging loosely by his side. For the first time, a sliver of doubt crept into his eyes. He looked at the beat-up truck. He looked at the sleek briefcase. He looked at the black man in the hoodie who spoke with the diction of a senator. "You're bluffing," Kowalski muttered, but he didn't sound sure anymore. "Riley," Isaiah said, shifting his gaze to the rookie. "Get my phone. It's on the hood. Dial the emergency contact listed as Overwatch. Do it now, and you might salvage your career." Riley looked at Kowalski. Kowalski looked at the case. "Do it," Isaiah commanded. Riley scrambled for the phone. She picked it up. The screen was cracked from where Kowalski had thrown it. But it lit up. There was no passcode screen, just a biometric lock and an emergency button. She pressed emergency. A list popped up. 1. H. Clay, General. 2. Walter Reed. Command 3. Overwatch. Riley's hands shook. She looked at the names. General Clay? Kowalski. "Tah," she whispered, holding the screen up for him to see. "Look at the contacts." Kowalski squinted. He read the names. The color drained from his face so fast it looked like he was about to faint. "Call it," Kowalski whispered, his throat dry. Riley tapped Overwatch. She put it on speaker. It rang once. Then a voice answered. It wasn't a dispatcher. It wasn't a receptionist. It was a voice that sounded like grinding metal. "This is a secure line. State your encryption key. If you are not Dr. Sterling, place the device on the ground and step away. Satellites are locking on your position." Riley dropped the phone. The phone lay on the asphalt, the screen glowing faintly in the dark. The voice from the speaker had gone silent. But the threat hung in the humid air like smoke. Officer Kowalski stared at the device. He looked at Isaiah, who was still leaning against the tailgate of the F-150, his face an unreadable mask of calm. "You think this is funny?" Kowalski's voice cracked. He was trying to summon the rage that usually fueled him, but it was being replaced by a cold, creeping dread. "You got some buddy with a voice modulator to prank? Call 911? That's a felony, doctor, impersonating a federal officer.